You remember this story when the director of the Houston National Cemetery prohibited veterans from mentioning the word God or Jesus during funerals. Well, now one congressman wants that changed, and he's proposing a new amendment to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Joining us now is Republican Congressman from Texas, Ted Poe. Congressman, nice to see you this morning.
Thank you.
What is in this amendment, and what are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, the amendment that passed the House last week in an appropriations bill will prohibit the federal government from interfering at the funerals of our veterans at the Veteran Cemetery. What happened in Houston was the director was censoring speech, censoring the prayers, closed the chapel, took out the cross, the Bible, and the Star of David, made the storage shed. And so this amendment will allow veterans and their families, when they go to a funeral and a burial, to have a religious service without the federal government coming in and censoring and prohibiting free speech and the exercise of religion.
Congressman, let's just remind our viewers exactly what happened last summer at this cemetery. We have a full screen. They wouldn't let chapel chimes ring. They regulated the prayers. As we mentioned in our intro, the veterans couldn't say God or Jesus. They removed Bibles. They removed the cross. They removed the Star of David. Closed the chapel. What were the folks here thinking?
They weren't thinking at all. They wanted to have a secular, politically correct burial. The director of the cemetery did, and that's not appropriate. There's a zone of privacy around a burial ceremony with the families, the veterans of foreign wars, and it's important for them to have a religious burial for a veteran that may have gone all over the world to fight for the First Amendment, and they come home and our own government comes in and denies them the First Amendment freedom of religion and speech. And so we're going to make sure that in the future the federal government stays out of the burial ceremonies of our veterans at the national cemeteries. And in Houston, the cross, the Star of David, the chapel has been reopened, and it's because they had to sue here in Houston. We want to make sure that the veterans of foreign wars doesn't have to go around the country and sue. So we're going to make sure that the law changes to keep the bureaucrats out of prayer and out of speech when our great veterans are buried in our national cemeteries.
It is remarkable, Congressman. Thanks for your work on this. I mean, you think about the veterans who go over to the beaches of Normandy and climb and see that remarkable cemetery there, which is just a sea of crosses. And they have crosses here that are being locked up and thrown in sheds is despicable.
Yes, it is, and it's just more federal bureaucracy, insensitive to the veterans, and also this legislation will require the directors of our cemeteries, our veteran cemeteries, to be veterans so that they understand the necessity of taking care of our veterans when they're buried.
Right, that's a great point. Congressman Ted Poe, thanks so much for coming in and explaining it to us.